Welcome to Chasing a Murderer Talking News. Today, guys, I'm going to have to do this quite a bit of hurry. We're on part 58 of Life Beyond the Grave, which is attached to the Lori Vallow case. She's also known as the Doomsday Mom. So, the diary that I've been using, well, it's an app that I'm using to keep track of this story. Well, it's messing up, and this is very concerning. So I'm going to try to cover as much as I can, as fast as I can. I know you guys are depending on the details. So today we are going to actually go into real quick Jason Mao. A lot of people know him that follow this case, and he grew up as a Mormon. He went on his mission when he was 19. He returns home. He goes into the military. He ends up struggling a bit once he gets out of the military. He is dealing with addiction. He's had a divorce. He became a police officer where he got injured, and that's where he got addicted. And I'll try to go into more details on that later. And he loses his wife during this time because he's bedridden. He thinks that his life is over. But through his faith and determination, he starts writing books. He refers to as the war stories. It's combat details, mature characters, emotional and spiritual dilemmas, where he says these are his experiences as a paratrooper, a narcotics detective, which is odd for an addiction person, SWAT team leader, his experience as a bodyguard, infused in as well a scriptural story with a wealth of details. Again, all of this mixed in with his own experience in war. So during this 2016, his life is actually turning a different direction for him. He's actually seeing himself climb out of this dark hole he's in. And his girlfriend, Nikki, well, he's planned a surprise for her, a surprise engagement. In his own words, written in the details, it says that Jason Mao surprises Nikki Wood, his unsuspecting girlfriend, with a proposal of marriage after he gets called up on stage to sing Keep Your Hands to Yourself. He does a pretty good job, guys, and I thought this was a quite creative and romantic gesture to the love of his life. So here's a clip.
We know Jason, and he wanted to sing a song, and so we just set it up so he could sing something. He's got something he wants to say. Okay. And then I'll just...
This is James.
This is a setup. I've got something I'd like to say. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the love of my life right now. Nikki, you're my rock. You're my anchor. You're the calm in my storm. Will you marry me?
As you can see, this is Jason Mao's highlight of his life. Things seem to be going pretty smoothly for him. However, for Lori Vallow, she is more into Chad Daybell's teachings, and she's learning from Chad Daybell that those who have food storage are worthy to get through certain gates. So it's important for those who are preparing that they have their share of storage. Remember, Lori Vallow is very competitive whatever she gets involved in, she wants to make sure that her family and herself, they're always going to be on top. And for people like Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, Julie Rowe, there are many books out there to choose from when it comes to being able to be, um, get the knowledge you need in order to prepare for the last days. You have Escape from Babylon, a novel of events of the last days written by Roger K. Young, Susan D. Young, Suzanne Bullock, Christopher M. Parrott. And this book is very familiar to Chad Daybell's book, at least one of the books from a series, Evading Babylon. Preppers like Lori Vallow, well, they can go to the website AVAL, where they can get information from people like Chris Parrott, who write, "We have been told repeatedly by prophets and apostles over, the last 100 years to prepare for sudden and often expected calamities. And this will happen many years before the actual return of the Savior. They have warned us about an approaching and sudden famine in America that will last at least a full year, accompanied by sudden dissolution of society and government as we currently know it." That's pretty scary. And I will place some this and that's here for you guys to look over. Around this time, Colby Ryan is attending Friends University. So you got to remember that Colby Ryan was not getting along with his parents too well in his teenage years, especially Charles Vallow. And he would not be around his mom as much around this time. Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow remain in the Vallow household. J.J. Vallow is getting bigger every day, and they're finding out that it's quite a challenge dealing with some of the things that J.J. carries. Tylee Ryan is still having a few health issues, but we don't really get much detail on this. J.J.'s grandparents, Kay Woodcock and Larry Woodcock, we're told make several visits to visit their grandson. But if you were to hear Melanie Boudreau, her version of this, she will claim that Kay Woodcock and Larry Woodcock rarely ever have anything to do with J.J. Vallow. And this is something she says in the future after everything, breaks wide open. So she completely lied. Kay and Larry Woodcock absolutely adore J.J. And J.J. goes to visit them as often as he can. And the problem is they live in Louisiana, and at this time during the Vallow's life, they're kind of moving around a whole lot. Tylee Ryan is struggling with school. And there's no doubt in my mind that all this moving has something to do with it. Lori's interest is dramatically changing. She's not so much into Joseph Ryan any longer. Her interest has switched to preparing for end days, and they're talking about the New Jerusalem at one point being in Missouri. And let me give you guys an idea where Chad Daybell is kind of getting some of his ideas. One of them being Orson Scott Card, who is a great grandson of Brigham Young, I believe. 2 generations. I think it's his short story collection, Folk of the Fringe, where it's about changes of natural environment, essentially the refilling of Lake Bonneville, forcing the relocation of a population along a certain area and towards deserts of the southern Utah area. But he says, of course, he refers to this guy being a fiction writer, but, he's interested in this stuff. But like many Mormons in this group, Chad will begin to believe that he, a prophet or a leader, begins to push his great visions. And for me, it appears that he's stealing a lot of Julie's ideas and a lot of others. The same visions of a great gathering, which is not too far away in the near future. He knows that Christ is coming for a second time, and it's time to prepare. He believes that he is part of 144,000. And 144,000 starts to take topic in these websites and these forums a little more often. His group is not the only group that is straying away from the main church. They are not the only one, talking about blood atonement and how, you know, that Jesus Christ is not the only one to be atoned for his sins and him dying for yours. You got to remember the Mormons have been plagued by the idea of being polygamous practitioners. And actually, the polygamous practice ended around 1890. And it's the fundamentalists are the ones that continue to practice those old ways. Though Chad belongs to the LDS who have moved away from those, what they called old practices. There are still groups not too far in the past that we've heard about, like Anna LeBron's father, Erbil, who was actually the leader of a cult, which was a polygamous cult, where they had 20 murders. The Mormons have had to struggle with these offshoots since the beginning. So many of them claiming to be prophets, true prophets of Jesus Christ and the Mormon religion. A lot of them, they're taught that they are the celestial children, having been born from the prophets. And many of these children go on to tell their stories later on, saying that, in that time they believed it. And as we get past one group, we think that we defeated, the lies. Then the church has another pop up and then another. And Chad Daybell, while he has his eyes set on building this new community behind the church leader's back, by also manipulating people into believing that the church is behind him. Websites like Another Voice are warning, while this actually gives them huge opportunities to target, grow, collect, and expand. In fact, Chad Daybell has his own area within this website where he's able to promote his books. And on this website, you can actually pay a little bit more in a fee, and I think it's about $5 in this case. And one witness says that Chad would post, what they call teasers. And if you wanted to read more, you had to pay $5. Meanwhile, Julie is actually working on her energy sessions more. She's holding several classes, and you might be interested to know that Chad Daybell is attending several of these classes. Why would Chad be so interested in Julie's classes? Well, he's learning something. He has something personal going on. That's what a lot of people say when they try to guess why he was interested in energy work. We know that Julie Rowe mentioned that she's going to Chad and Tammy's house occasionally to hang out with them. She said when she's there, Chad seemed to love Tammy. And on one account, she noticed that he sat there holding hands with Tammy. She mentioned that she was able to witness how they raised their children and their personal relationship, but she doesn't elaborate how. But not too far from now, there's going to be an instance where Julie later claims that Chad tried to, let's put it nicely, sexually seduce her. And we'll go into more on that later. But here she is. She's at their house. She observes that they're holding hands. This was important to her. I don't know why this would be important to her, but it was. This is something that stood out to her. Now let me take you and jump back to the Vallow's household. The Cox as well. We are learning that Lori Vallow and her entire family, they're Mormons. We're not told exactly how involved they are with their faith, but we know that Lori Vallow, she's quite involved. And she tries to include her family on her awareness of what's going on through her faith and these groups that she's getting involved with. She shares how these books that she's reading by Chad Daybell. And later on, she'll share how she's been watching the Julie Rowe post or podcast. We hear from Lori Vallow's family that she's a very loving soul. Well, there's things that you can learn that happen around this family that can give you ideas of just how loving they are. Now, we learn from Alex Cox, which is Lori Vallow's brother, from one of his ex wives, that he and his sister Lori, well, they had this odd relationship where they would do sexual, um, like pretend acts in a joking manner. She says these two had a very odd relationship considering that they were brother and sister. So here's something I found that a few witnesses say on how Lori Vallow and her brother Alex Cox value animal life. The way that Lori sees things is if you don't want something anymore, then you just get rid of it. Alex Cox is known to the family. If you don't want an animal any longer, well, you just call him and he'll get rid of it for you. One family member mentioned that Alex is called because Alex Cox doesn't seem to have any second thoughts about taking the life of an animal. In fact, he takes the dog and shoots it to get rid of it, and which he's done for Lori before. So here, if this is true, well, you have warnings that Alex Cox and Lori Vallow both, well, they just really don't value life at all, at least for animals, and still, that says a lot. Not only are they taking the life of a loved family member or pet, well, they don't value how the rest of the family members feel. They don't care how it's going to impact the children that this family member is hauled away and then gotten rid of in a very dark way. So some very concerning signs that before any of this case really starts to get going. But they're not alone. Chad Daybell has showed very dark signs as well. We learned that Chad enjoyed killing bees. We learned that he enjoys using dark ideas in order to control groups of people. He really doesn't think twice that he's making money off of people's fear and panic. The same for Julie Rowe. These dark, scary things that they see happening in the near future are dire warnings, according to them anyhow, that is supposed to be meant to help people. If that's the case, then why are so many things going wrong? Why are so many people losing everything that they have? Why are marriages breaking up? Why are people losing life as they know it? You gotta think. Julie releases another book in March of 2016, From the Tragedy to Destiny, A Vision of America's Future. If you really want to know what they think about what's going to happen in the future, you have to read these books. She kept the book non-denominational to appeal to a broader audience. Remember her near-death experience in 2004. There, she has this experience where she's able to visit the other side of the veil. There, she meets some of America's founding fathers, and they have a message for her to deliver once she returns back to her earthly realm. They're worried about the erosion of the moral fabric of this country, and she promised them when she returned back to Earth that she would share these warnings. But it's not just the founding fathers, it's God Himself who is preparing places of safety to protect the righteous people from the coming devastations. And that she says all of the money that she will make from this book, well, they go towards her Greater Tomorrow Relief Fund, which we've never seen what it does. We haven't seen anybody that she's helped, anyone that's come forward to say, this is how it's helped me. And we never hear her say much on sex trafficking. She never talks about it. So that was supposed to be one of the things she was interested in helping. Remember, Julie Rowe had taken a break from speaking to media, but around May of 2016, Julie actually starts talking back with media, and she mentions the Washta wake up. In the interview, Julie says, "My understanding right now is this interview that I'm having with you, Brian, is the last opportunity I have to essentially publicly testify and witness of our Savior Jesus Christ, testify of his plan, and warn many of our brothers and sisters that there's a very imminent earthquake on the Washtosh front. What I've been shown and told is this is my last opportunity to do a live interview before that earthquake. It's going to happen. After that earthquake happens, which is happening very soon, then I'm going to get hit by a whirlwind of media." You got to know, guys, this didn't go as planned. Julie Rowe is not alone when it comes to believing that they are great visionaries with great messages from God Himself. Another important face in this story is a guy by the name of David Warwick. He's a Mormon. When he was younger, he was into gangs, he was getting into trouble, and he used the faith of God to guide him away from that darkness. And he has a humongous list that we need to go over. Now remember, David Warwick, he was happily married, and there was a lady we know of, Melanie Gibb, that's a part of this story. She was happily married. They end up getting divorced in the future. And David and Melanie Gibb get together. And we'll talk more in detail about that in the future. But just kind of want to give you a heads up. Let's talk about David Warwick for a second. Here is a PDF file uploaded by David. I would like to say brief summary, but it's a huge summary of who he is and how he sees life, God, and everything around him. I'm not going to go over everything. However, I'm going to leave it here for you to pause the video and read over. David Warwick says his first vision comes when he's 14 years old. You can see that he believes that there's warning signs, there's visions for him that's telling him that the second coming and the first resurrection is near. He sees himself as an adult. He says that the visions of gangs who were testing him to see if he would take drugs. This is very important. He refuses. And if he did take them, he realized he would have to kill them. He attempted suicide, cut his wrist, saw the inside of his body, and saw the order and power. He hears voices, and these voices are telling him that he would live, and then you would live again. At 17 years old in West Mountain, Utah, he's introduced to a girl. He went to see her. His dad tells him no and says let them visit him in the room. He sees other visions like of his 5-year-old self doing a puzzle with the prophet and 12 apostles. He says his real dream in life was to play in a band and tour the country. Here's the thing, is I noticed that David Warwick seems to attract to wild or different people. He's struggling with whether or not he wants to be Mormon. He asks God to show him a sign, give him something to know it is true. And he does. He gets a sign, and he sees the word Zion. He continues to get heavenly manifestations as well as works are according to our faith. And he's able to see these auras around people. He could hear things before people said them out loud. And once at a sacred meeting, he left to a different realm. He did this through speeding very rapidly through a tunnel. He describes it as having a brilliant light. Once through, he could see an angel that stepped forward, and he saw multiple people. He mentions something about Moroni. Even more interesting, he says he can see the Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ and Lucifer present the plan of salvation. He had a great love for Lucifer, but it broke his heart to see Lucifer doing what he was doing. I'm not certain who he's referring to when he says love Lucifer, whether it's God or him. He says he has a mission in Florida. 2 months in, things get really bad. He gets in a fight with his companions, he packs, and decides to leave. He gets a call from the mission president who asks David to stay just a few more weeks and attend the conference. And this is very sad because David's at the conference and he says he sits alone, but he hears no spirit, no teach. Then he sits up and he becomes enlightened and humble. He said he knew that he had to learn obedience. His interests, he talks about, are degrees of glory. It's while in an apartment, and he says he went into a vision. And this is where his visions could become quite different. In his visions, America is falling apart, and lights would come across and destroy what would be major destruction in certain areas. So you can see that, I mean, there's a lot more to this, but David himself, he's kind of on the same page as all these other people. They're hearing things, they're seeing things, they're talking to people on the other side of the veil. They believe that they're talking to higher powers. It's not for me to judge, but it's something we should question. And all of these people are finding one another online. These are the kind of things that they're sharing on these websites. You're welcome to pause the video and read the rest. Please, guys, be kind enough to like, subscribe, share, and also you can give to my Patreon to help us keep producing videos like this. Don't forget about our girls like Jasmine Robinson. They're still missing, and they need your help to bring them back home to their families who love them. Love you guys. See you guys soon.